Well, growing up in New York is just like it's the mecca of like culture in a lot of ways, or at least historically, you know. And where I grew up in Manhattan Plaza is these buildings is like, you know, where it's Section 8 housing, a large percentage of it is artists and people in the arts. So I grew up around, you know, creatives and creators my whole childhood and life, even when I was just running around trying to be a basketball player and I didn't even realize like how much creative energy was around me. And then just like being in, I mean, for rap, I mean, hip hop's like the language of New York that everybody speaks, you know. It's like a diverse place, and especially in like sort of like the class politics of New York. And I was like really exposed across different, like I played ball in Harlem and South Bronx where I was like the only white kid, but then I went to school with like some wealthier white kids or like middle class like Brooklyn kids, and then I was at home in Hell's Kitchen with the kids that were there, and it's like a certain, so I was in all these like demographics and spaces and all that stuff, but hip hop and rap was just the language, that the universal language that everyone spoke and everything. So I started to see that as like the only through line in being a little confused about like identity because I didn't fit into any one place. And then hip hop was, so I just gravitated towards that because it was like, that was the through line, you know? My first interest in songwriting and just music in general and hip hop just came from being young and just growing up in New York and all these different moments that I would have just growing up on the playground in the park getting handed stuff by different people. And somebody handed me like Nellyville when I was like 7 in the park. That's what everyone was listening to. That song, What Does It Take to Be Number One? That shit was hard. I was just like, this shit is hard. Like, I just made me like, and then the Eminem show, I think, was the next year or either the same year. And dudes in the playground, like at the basketball courts where I grew up and would chill, all the older dudes would just listen to that stuff. So I was just listening to it, and then I used to like take the school bus home, and I had like the Walkman, but it had the FM radio. So I used to listen to Angie Martinez like on the school bus on the way home on High 97, and I just like used to be on it. And then I used to be in my coach's car when I was 11, 12, whatever, driving around to different tournaments, and he just always used to play like old Jay-Z and like lots of like older shit, and I would just be like, this is crazy, and I would go home and download it on LimeWire. Like, so it was like just real, just feelings that I got that made me want to like, and then when I went to express myself, I always like was using words and trying to write poems, but certain feelings, like I remember like this one time at a tournament, there was, oh man, I think it was like we came out of a timeout. We were walking back onto the court, and I was like having a good game, and I'm like 12, and they were playing Soul Survivor by Young Jeezy, and I was just like, and the summer breeze was just hitting my skin, and I was like, yo, I'm the fucking man. And like, I remember that to this day, like so vividly, that moment, you know what I'm saying? And that was what I think it was. It was just like hip hop, like, and music was just like these poignant moments, you know, and like I wanted to be a part of like giving that to certain people, and just I just couldn't get enough of like the way shit tied together the feelings that we feel, you know. I learned a lot of shit about the music industry just by being like around it in New York and starting to run around, see how things work or whatever. But really, like, what I learned more from growing up in New York about the music industry is how to wade through all the bullshit. Because growing up in New York, it's like everybody's always like talking they're this and they're that. And it's like, but in my generation, at least, it was like, you got to prove it. Like, you can't just talk all that talk, whether it's basketball or rap or fighting or whatever it is. Like, you can't just say that shit. So, like, in the music industry, there's so many people that just talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, ugh. And it's like, I'm going to do this and this opportunity and that opportunity, and we're going to do it like this and whatever. And it's like, New York just taught me, like, what are you putting behind that? Like, those words. And so, like, it informed my navigation of the music industry.